Okay, so we're given that -5 is less than a is less than 0. So a is somewhere here in this blue region, and 0 is less than b is less than or equal to 6. So b is somewhere here in this red region. And we want to figure out that the probability that the distance between a and b is less than 3. And from this diagram that we have here, it's, it shows something, but it's a little bit hard to tell, right? Like maybe a was over here and b was over here, and there's one possibility where the distance between a and b would be 2, less than 3. Okay, and let's go find all of them. And now that wouldn't be easy to do, right? Because there's decimals and fractions and infinite number of ways you can do this. But if we draw it on a graph like this, where we consider a and b here, we could consider the probability graphically, which would make our lives a lot easier. And you can see they already have graphed, so they made this the a is like the y-axis here, because they've got this line here is -5, and this is 0. So a is between 0 and -5, and then b is between 0 and -6. So this rectangle is the possible points that would satisfy a is less than or equal to -5 and b is less than or equal to 6. And where this line comes in, this red line, is if we want the distance between a and b to be less than 3, the distance between two things usually translates to the absolute value between a and b is less than 3. And you notice they don't have a full V graph shaded because absolute value always breaks down into two cases. The first case is where a minus b is already positive, is already greater than or equal to 0, in which case you could just drop the absolute value and a minus b would be less than 3. But if this were the case, that would mean a would be greater than or equal to b, and we can see from our picture that a is really we're given that a is less than b. A is negative, b is positive. This is not the case we're dealing with. We're dealing with the case where the inside of that absolute value is actually less than or equal to 0. And if that's the case, then if the absolute value, we could deal with that by slapping a negative sign on it to make the negative positive is less than or equal to 3. And that's why you end up flipping the inequality sign, flipping the thing afterwards, and we're dealing with this case here. And you've got, and if you rearrange that, a is greater than or equal to b minus 3. And this is like y is greater than or equal to x minus 3, because they're like a is the y-axis and b is the x-axis in this case. And you can see that that is the line that they've given us. So they've headed us in the right direction. We're going well. And for our case here, we want the y's to be greater than or equal to -3. So we're dealing with, above the line, this little shaded rectangle there. So now our probability that was difficult to see from the line diagram, but now we can get it using a geometric probability. And so it's the desired area, the area of the triangle over the area of the potential or the given rectangle. And now we've got it made. So the area of the triangle is just 1/2 base times height, so 1/2 3 times 3. And the area of the rectangle is base times height, so 5 times 6. If I just rearrange this, I'm going to kick the 2 down to the bottom. And then I can cancel one of those, and I get that it is 3/20. And that is the probability that the distance between A and B is less than 3. So again, tough to see from here, but the diagram that they started us off with helps a lot. In my written explanation, I do a lot more words with this. If you have time, you can write the words but if you're running out of time, this is okay. But like a 4-point answer would probably include all the lovely words. I can point to it here. Let's see if I can get to it. Too many things open. Yeah. So I've got the probability that the distance between A and B is less than 3 given the rectangle is the probability that all of it happens over the probability of the given, and then you get to this part. And I wrote a lot of the stuff that we were saying but not writing. So it makes it, this written explanation makes it look a lot more complicated than it actually is. But just be careful how you write it on the test. This would not give you full credit on the test, just what I've scribbled here. You got to write some of the writing. Okay, hope that makes sense.